In order to make our web pages interactive, we need a way of accessing information that is given to the web pages by the user. When we're running our Perl scripts directly from the command line, we're able to take user input directly. However, when we're running our Perl scripts through a web server, we need a different way of accessing that information. We're going to look at the two most common methods of taking user input, the get and post methods, in just a moment. Before we do that though, let's have a look back at our env script that we created in our last couple of movies. I mentioned before that the first variable here, query string, is something that we'd look at in terms of user input. Now let's have a look at that now. You may have noticed when browsing the web that sometimes web pages have extra information attached to the end of the page name itself, whether that page be a script or any other kind of web page. These can be added by including a question mark at the end and then extra data appended onto the web page address through the address bar. We can add whatever we like. We can add a string of nonsense here, and if we hit enter and let the page reload, we'll notice that that shows up as the value of the query string environment variable. This information is the raw format for get variables as they're passed through by the user to our Perl script. They can also be passed by other web pages which include URLs like this one, which include a query string after the page name and a question mark. Now this is not a terribly meaningful query string here. It doesn't really do anything at all. In order to make our query string more useful, we have to split it up into key and value pairs, just like the way we do with a hash. The syntax for doing this is very simple. We can type in the name of the variable that we want to give to the Perl script, then we use an equal sign, and then the value. If we want to append more than one variable, we simply use the ampersand to separate out each of those key value pairs. Once we've done that and hit enter, you'll notice that these variables are coming through in the query string, but they're still in their raw form. We'll look at how to process these in the next movie, but before we do that, let's have a look at what happens if we add another variable, and this time we're going to include some characters that shouldn't really be included in a URL. We're going to include some spaces, and let's see what happens when we tell the web browser to go to this URL and pass this information to the Perl script via the query string. You'll notice that although the data has been passed more or less the same as the way in which we put it in, it's actually added some extra characters here. We've got %20 instead of a space, and that's been used every time we've used a space in what we typed into the address bar. So that's another thing we'll have to be looking at retrieving, that kind of encoding that has to take place in order to provide a meaningful URL to the browser.